The night I returned to that quiet Ohio town, the past didn't knock politely. It grabbed me by the chest and refused to let go. Rain slicked the streets like a mirror, and every reflection showed a version of me I thought I'd buried years ago. I had come back for closure, for one last act of kindness, never imagining that a single sentence from my ex's mother would tilt the ground beneath my feet and force me to confront the kind of love I'd been running from all my life. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of doing the right thing even when it hurts, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this live because of people like you. I was 32, working construction across the Midwest, living out of duffel bags and half-finished dreams. My name is Matthew, and I learned early how to keep moving so nothing could catch me. Years before, I'd loved a woman named Rebecca, with the kind of intensity that convinces you it will last forever. It didn't. Our breakup was clean on the surface and devastating underneath. I left town the same week her father passed, telling myself I was giving her space when really I was running from grief that didn't belong only to me. The only person who had ever seen through that excuse was her mother, a woman named Margaret, whose kindness had always unsettled me because it demanded honesty. Margaret lived alone now in a modest house near the river, the same one where I'd once fixed a broken porch rail and shared awkward dinners that felt like family. When I heard she'd fallen ill, something in me cracked. I told myself I was just returning to help, to be decent. The truth was messier. I wanted forgiveness without asking for it, and I wanted to prove I wasn't the coward who disappeared. The first days back were heavy and slow. I repaired leaky faucets, mowed an overgrown lawn, and drove Margaret to her appointments. We spoke about practical things, weather, groceries, the way time slips through your fingers, but grief sat between us like a third presence. I could feel her watching me when she thought I wasn't looking, as if she were measuring the distance between who I was and who I might still become. In the evenings, the house grew quiet, and I'd sit at the kitchen table staring at my hands, remembering how they once held a future I couldn't keep. Margaret was recovering, but loneliness clung to her like a shadow. She moved carefully, each step deliberate, each breath earned. I noticed how she thanked me too often, how she tried to stand on her own even when she didn't have to. There was strength there, the kind forged by years of loving people who leave. One afternoon, while the sky bruised purple with an incoming storm, she shared a memory of her youth, not in confessions or quotes, but in the way her eyes softened. She spoke of a man who had once believed in her before life narrowed her choices. She said she had loved deeply, and then learned how to survive the absence of that love. It was then she said it, softly, almost to herself, that maybe her life would have been different if she had loved someone like me. The sentence wasn't flirtation, it was grief recognizing kindness. Still, it landed with weight. I felt the room shrink, the years fold in on themselves. I stepped closer, not out of impulse but out of a steady, grounded need to be present, to offer warmth where there had been too much cold. When I pulled her closer, it was not possession but protection, a shared acknowledgement that two people could be gentle without crossing into harm. The days that followed were a quiet reckoning. I wrestled with guilt, with the fear of betraying a past that no longer existed. Rebecca had moved on, built a life in another state, and sent her mother postcards filled with gratitude and distance. Margaret and I spoke openly about boundaries, about respect, about the difference between comfort and escape. What surprised me was how healing honesty could be when it wasn't laced with expectation. I learned that caring doesn't always demand a future. Sometimes it asks only for courage in the present. As Margaret grew stronger, so did something in me. I stopped sleeping with one eye open. I started cooking dinners that tasted like effort. I listened to her stories, to the creak of the house settling at night, to my own heartbeat when it finally slowed. The town no longer felt like a trap. It felt like a teacher. I realized the challenge I'd been avoiding wasn't love itself, but the responsibility of staying when staying is hard. One evening by the river, fireflies blinking like promises, Margaret spoke about forgiveness, not as a gift you give others, but as a burden you set down for yourself. She didn't ask for anything. She didn't need to. I understood that pulling her closer that day wasn't about romance. It was about choosing presence over fear. It was about becoming the man I'd pretended to be. Near the end of summer, I decided to stop drifting. I accepted a local job, rented a small place, and committed to a rhythm that included showing up. Margaret and I settled into something honest and careful, a companionship rooted in respect and shared growth. There were no grand declarations, just a steady accumulation of trust. I wrote Rebecca a letter I never sent, not because she needed it, but because I did. In it, I thanked her for the love that taught me how to fail forward. If this story has reached into your heart, if it's reminded you that kindness can change the shape of a life, please take a moment now to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps these stories find the people who need them most. And before the ending, I have a special request for you. Please comment below with one word that this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you know. On my last night of summer, I stood on the porch Margaret once thought would collapse and watched the stars come out one by one. I felt grounded, not because everything was perfect, but because I finally was. Love, I learned, doesn't always arrive the way we expect. Sometimes it comes as a second chance wrapped in responsibility, asking us to be better than we were yesterday. And when you answer that call, even quietly, the world shifts just enough to let the light back in.